Welcome to the Influence Experiment, where we seek to explore the art and the science of building influential capacity. Every month, we want to raise thought-provoking ideas of how you can be an investor of the influence you carry. If you're ready to journey with us, then it's time to experiment.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Influence Experiment as we seek to learn to invest our influence well. Well, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're not going to be producing any new content for you. In fact, we're actually going to pause and we're going to reflect back on everything that's happened in the Influence Experiment over the past 12 episodes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play you a clip from each of the 10 communicators that have made up the past 12 episodes. And so the invitation is to lean in. The invitation is to be challenged by the medley of communicators and guests that we had on the Influence Experiment. And if you missed an episode and you really were challenged or encouraged or convicted by what they said, so maybe go back to that episode and check it out. So would you lean in and reflect and be challenged and take notes of everything that God maybe wants to share to you through this medley mashup of the Influence Experiment?
What would you say are some of the pitfalls or temptations to avoid when pursuing change in disruption?
Yeah, I think one of them is we try to lead too many things at once. We try to make too many changes all at one time. It's hard to lead any substantial real change and disruption one at a time, let alone multiple things. I think that's one. I think we don't always lead with clarity. We don't always tell people where we really want them to go and why. That's a problem. I think we can not recognize the effect that it has on real people. What are these changes going to do downstream to people, and how do we make sure that we understand, hey, we made this change to this level in the organization. What's going to happen to these people? We changed bedtime for the little kids. What does that mean for the big kids? Or we did something for the big kids. What does that mean for the little kids? And I just don't think we recognize those things. There's a lot of others, but I would say clarity and amount of change are probably the two that I see the most.
You know, earlier, before we even started recording, we brought up the word vulnerability. What would you say is, how does vulnerability play into this conversation? Because I know it's a messy word.
It is. It is. And it's hard. So I personally believe that a lot of long-term mental health issues, especially depressive episodes, stem from a lack of vulnerability. Right? So being vulnerable is, being, for me personally, my interpretation of that is to be open and honest and sharing openly of oneself. That is hard. I've had a lot of years of practice at it too. Sure. Let's be clear. When I tell you I did more than a decade of therapy, and as recently as 6 months ago, I checked in to say, hey, this is what's going on. I'm not sure if it's okay or not, and I just need somebody to let me know if I'm good, because I'm not sure. The level of vulnerability it takes to do that is astounding. But what I can say is that as you do it, it gets easier. And I also think it makes you more relatable. It makes you not only more open, but more genuine in every walk of life.
What's crazy, Jen, is as you said, it gets easier. The person who maybe is wrestling with vulnerability could hear you and think you're crazy. There's no way it gets easier. But from my own personal experience, it does. And I can say that confidently that, it is a scary concept to lay yourself out on a table or in a conversation and say, this is me in all its raw form. And yet, when it's with a safe person, that's kind of the optimal thing that we need to stress here. That's when a safe group of people or a safe person, that there is freedom in that. And the ability to become more aware, calling out. Even when we talk about a 12-step program, what's the first thing? To say you have a problem, to acknowledge it, that's a step of vulnerability, and it's absolutely crucial and needed in understanding mental health, and something that maybe you wrestle with, or helping even some of your friends, your peers, your colleagues, family that maybe wrestle with as well. But we also can't be pushy with vulnerability, right?
Right. No, well, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. So if you're pressuring somebody into being vulnerable, right, they're going to do the opposite. They're going to totally shut down. You're not going to get anything from it. I think it's interesting that you correlate it to 12 steps and all of that, because it's so true. And I've said multiple times that I absolutely wish that every person on the face of the planet would do the 12 steps, would read the big book from AA, or NA if that's your choice, but do the 12 steps, because you can find yourself in every single one of those stories, no matter what your situation in life, and they really are just a guide on how to be a better, more proactive, productive, and vulnerable human being with a relationship with God. Period. That's what the 12 steps are.
So you're saying I should go do the 12-step
You
program?
should. Yes, we all should. Yes.
No, but I think you're right. It's in the same way that we say everyone needs counseling. I think that from what I know and hear of AA and the 12-step program, it is fantastic.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's freeing, and I think we all want a little freedom in our life, right? And freedom from the things that plague us or weigh us down or cause shame in our life or whatever. And so, no, I think that's a beautiful sentiment to say we want to pursue vulnerability. It's practically doing that, right?
Yeah.
And so, but nonetheless, we should be pursuing it.
Hey, what would you say are some of the tells of a healthy, productive relationship, whether it is your work, a team, or even family related? What were some tells that you'd say?
Yeah. So when I look at a group and I see things like there's elements of trust and respect, in a marriage relationship or in a family or in a work situation, there's elements of trust and respect that are there. I would also say that there's care and concern for the other party. Clearly you want to also protect yourself from somebody that's being malicious, but it's about also caring about and having concern for the other party. There's also this element of psychological safety and humility that I think makes it safe. It allows for some crucial conversations to take place, which really is an opportunity to build stronger relationships. And, I think of crucial conversations of, when the stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions run strong. And those are really, really crucial conversations, and I think in a healthy space you can have those. And I would say there's also an element of curiosity over certitude. When I say certitude, it's like sometimes we walk into something with a dogmatic certainty that something is some way. This person did this, where, maybe having a little authentic curiosity over being just so certain that something happened also, I think, is an element that really is a tell of productive relationships. And I would say one thing that one of the bosses I worked with at Aetna, Ron Williams, had this saying. He said, assume positive intent. So even though we might have some tense conversations or try to resolve some issues, you want to assume positive intent versus thinking somebody's out to get you, And then the final thing I would say is there's this element of wanting to understand before being understood. And I think that goes along with that authentic curiosity that I had mentioned. You want to really understand the other person's perspective before you want to try to force your views on them.
What does fostering an environment look like where it is encouraged to pursue positive leadership qualities in your family, your team, and your organization?
Well, the more you can build trust within that team or family, and the more you can create safety and freedom to fail, the more you can do that, the more you're going to see people growing and, reaching to new gifts and trying new things. I just think this is so critical, because if there isn't trust and if there isn't freedom to fail, those we are mentoring, they're going to hold back. They're going to be reluctant to step up to the plate. They're going to be reluctant to show up at a meeting and offer that great idea, which might be exactly the thing that the group needs to hear. They just sit back, they sit on it because they saw the last person kind of be pushed down, ignored maybe their idea, not taken seriously. It's so important to encourage people to speak up and let them try things. And you know what? It's okay if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
There's got to be that freedom to fail. And that just unleashes opportunities and calls giftings out of people.
Wow. Right when you said freedom to fail, it just it hit me. I was like, that's rich. Like that's not your next one, but in the same time that could be 4.B, right?
Yeah.
That's so good. The freedom to fail, where there's an environment where, man, we have this. How crazily it would change our teams and our families if we had this this permissibility to fail, where there's just grace infused into it, but not to the point of, oh yeah, we can just fail all the heck that we want, but no, but having this corrective, trusting language where we're gonna trust each other to speak into each other. And to speak truth when we fail, but knowing that there is freedom and space to do that. Sherilyn, I think that is, again, an incredible quality, what an environment would look like, and where these positive characteristics can just blossom.
Yeah. And if I could just mention one other thing about that, freedom to fail. At work, we have a concept called failing forward, meaning, you have the freedom to fail here. You have the freedom to try a new idea, and it's okay if it doesn't work out, because we're going to use that information to move forward. We're going to learn something valuable from it. And so it's just really a cool concept then. And I see how amazing it has been at work with a lot of new things that we've tried. And each thing we learn something from, and it spurs you on to the next thing.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thanks for speaking into that. And even as we continue to unpack this thought, is that sometimes we can mistake unity or uniformity as unity. Right. What is the danger of thinking we are uniform, therefore we are unified?
Yes. Yeah. Uniformity and unity can easily be mistakenly interchanged. Uniformity can tend to kind of have the tendency to close itself off into kind of this narrow type of unity, which actually has the effect of kind of excluding and limiting. And to be uniform, it kind of gets smaller and smaller and smaller because of the rich diversity that we possess. So sometimes uniformity is used with great effect. So, for example, we're all going to put on our uniforms. That's a great thing. How awesome is it when you see a team wearing the same? I mean, there's some great stuff here. But I would go back to my comments kind of about oneness being both horizontal and vertical, and uniformity tends to kind of make its own standards the reference point, and not God at times. So it kind of looks for ways to kind of make rules and exclude anything that's not in alignment with this purer and purer version of itself. So uniformity has some problems. Now, alternatively, unity, and this is why it's easy to confuse these things. Unity that recognizes the same value of holding together and being uniform, this integrity, a unity that has that while looking outside of itself, and frankly looking to God, but looking outside of itself to other things that can kind of be tied in, that bring the synergy and an increasing sense of understanding, how in God's creation all things hold together. That's the kind of unity that's kind of seeking the deeper truth and kind of recognizes the diversity.
All the religions of the world can be stacked up in basically one idea. Here's our rules. Live according to these standards. You get a paycheck when you die. Heaven, peace, whatever that is. Christianity, in contradistinction, starts with the opposite. It starts with, here are the rules, you can't do it. You will never be able to pull it off. Don't even try. You're not going there if it's based on you. However, you have a creator who loved you, who knows you can't pull it off, sent his son to die for you, and in inserting himself into the picture and doing it for you, he created a way that is undeserved and accessible by faith, by grace through faith. And ultimately, Christianity starts with a view of humanity that is, I think, realistic, as opposed to there's somehow I can kind of pull up my bootstraps spiritually and become such a good guy that I will earn this. So one is an earned quotient, the other one is an undeserved one. And that has an outworking in the worldview of how it plays out and what attitudes rise to the surface as value. I got to tell you, as a Jesus follower, one of the mistakes we make is we enter the public square, first, with a lack of sensitivity, I think, in general, and second, with a kind of if you all could get your act together, you'd be us, and kind of a provincialism.
What would you say are some pitfalls to avoid when it comes to measuring success?
Pitfalls, I'd say getting too locked into them and making them gods, right? Finding your identity in them. I think that could be pretty easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And so, just like the Sabbath, again, right? It's something that you end up seeing more important than just growing closer to Jesus and making his name known.
Yep. So having like an open hand, right? And
Yeah.
and not having rigidity to
Yeah.
like these
Yeah,
are God inscribed on stone rules that goals I can't shift from. Are there any other pitfalls that like come to mind for you?
Pitfall of not going through the effort. It does take effort. It does take thought. It takes a minute to really think about it clearly, and just throw it out. I think the pitfall is the other side of it, and just have no goals, not take it seriously at all. Right? Have you ever heard of it?
It's becoming more and more normal, even when someone asks, like, "Hey, how are you doing?" To someone respond, "Oh, I'm so busy," and I'm guilty of this. Like, and though this can be like a legitimate answer at times, how can this actually be a type of pride response, or even an unhealthy response to that?
Absolutely. Often at the core of that is there is a sense of I'm worth more if I'm busy. You know, like I have more to offer you if I say that I'm busy. And if I say that I'm not busy, somehow does that mean my life has less value, that it has less importance? And so I think that message has been sent to us in our Western culture in a lot of ways. And when I look at social media, that has just absolutely fed that kind of thinking.
Yep.
You know, I have to be on social media. I have to check this out. I have to make sure I am Pinterest perfect, as it were, all of those things. But the bottom line is busyness is a way that we applaud success and achievement in our culture. And our culture lends itself to success and achievement.
Yeah.
There are other cultures around the world that value rest and quiet, all right, that see that as embedded, it's woven into the fabric of who they are as a culture. But our Western culture acknowledges and values more achievement and being recognized for success. And I know I was raised by builders, and builders were busy people. You know, they really took seriously a work ethic. Okay, so I know for me, and there may be others like this, I was raised in a loving home, but I was also raised with parents who had high expectations. And so I've had to fight throughout my life this message that if I'm not busy, I'm being lazy. Okay?
Yep.
And so we have to watch what kind of messages we are processing in our minds when we think about why we feel like we need to be busy.
Like as we even think about a scriptural passage that I know has challenged me time and time and time again, probably will challenge me again when you start talking about it, is Matthew 11, 28 and 29, when Jesus is speaking and he says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls."
Yeah.
What do you think Jesus was trying to communicate in this passage?
What that verse has done for me over the years has come back and been a reminder to me that this is God's invitation through his son, Jesus, for us to come to him with a deeper sense of, Jesus, show me how to live. That's what I think is inherent in this verse. He is saying, I will show you how to live. Like when you look at take my yoke upon me, historically a yoke was a sign of slavery. So like if you were captured by another power, a greater power, greater nation, and they would put a yoke on you, it was a symbol of slavery and that you were a slave to them. Well, in essence, this yoke is, I am a slave to Jesus, but he's saying, if you walk with me, which we know a yoke is, so I'm walking with him, not with somebody else. I'm walking with him, and he's saying, let me show you how to live. And I believe that's what he's saying. I think that's why he's saying you will find rest for your souls if you walk with me. He's not a taskmaster. And too often we look at our faith as something of, these are all the do's and don'ts that I have to do. And those do's can even make us busier than we should be, and they don't refresh our souls.
Right.
But Jesus says, no, when you walk with me, I will give you rest for your soul.
Yeah.
And I think inherent in that, when you think about what does Jesus teach us, he taught us a way of life. He was God in the flesh who came to show us how it is that we should live. And part of that were the rhythms that he revealed to us. He revealed rhythms of work and rest.
Yeah.
Jesus was busy, but he was never hurried. Okay? And so
That's good.
And so what I think we learn when we are yoked to Jesus, this invitation that he gives to us, is this sense of when you are with me, when you walk with me, when you live with me, when you spend time with me, when you arrange your life to be with me and allow my spirit to direct you, you will find rest for your soul. You will find peace, even in the midst of a busy schedule. And I believe that's what that is. It's an invitation for us to understand a way of life.
David, why would you say that like modeling presence is so important in a world that is so inconsistent at times?
I read this great article and it said, you never determine when you are being present. The people around you determine that. I could say to my 8-year-old daughter that I'm being present right now. I am being here. I am with you. And it doesn't count unless she agrees. It's the people.
Wow.
It's the other people. And so, and you know, do you want to be the dad or the youth pastor? Sorry, I got to put my hand out. Who's always doing this? You know, always like just got to look at my phone. Got to look at my phone. Got to look at my phone. And for like dad advice, there was a friend of mine who's a counselor. He was just like, hey, give me some advice. He's like, just try. He's like, just try to spend 15 minutes every now and then with your kid doing something they love doing non-judgmentally. So that'd be like, hey, I just want to understand Fortnite. And I just want to enjoy it. What's good about it? Like, what do you love about this? Tell me what's funny about this. What's interesting? And just be like, oh, I mean, you can do this with a 2-year-old, right? My kids are like playing Hungry Hippos, right? It's like, can you sit in that moment and just be present? And especially if someone's going through something hard, can you sit in it and just listen, sit in the puddle and not offer advice? Trust that God can lead that person to a solution, can lead them in wisdom. And sometimes they don't need to hear from you. You're not the voice of the Holy Spirit in that situation. So you're just best to keep your mouth shut and just be there.
Yeah, but how often do we think we're the voice of the Holy Spirit in our students' lives, in our kids' lives, and we think, man, we are God's gift to this person in this moment with what I have to say. When so often it's literally just shut up and be present, like give a listening ear, showing, just like you said, show interest and celebrate what's good. And they're like something as simple as Fortnite. I can promise you that I know that could make a significant impact on us kids' life, a student's life. You can just sit with them and ask them about that kind of stuff. And
the whole concept of this podcast is finding the art and the science to building influential capacity. And there is definitely a needed art to managing disappointment, right? And so what would you say, if you can speak into this, what would you say is some of the science behind it, the objective truth behind managing disappointment and disappointing others, but then also maybe some of the art, the subjective, individual, personal expression behind managing disappointment and disappointing others?
That's a unique question and a great question. I think science or truth behind it is some stuff we've already said, but we will disappoint people. And disappointment is not meant to destroy us. We are not created or wired to have disappointment to destroy us. It is meant to help us to grow. God uses all these things in our lives, good and bad, challenging, not challenging, to grow us as individuals and to become more like him, more like Jesus. And we can't become more like Jesus without having challenges, disappointments in our lives. So they're important and they're not meant to destroy us. I think that's truth and the science behind it. The art is how we personally walk through that and handle it, and then how we help others walk through that and handle a little bit like we've been talking before. And I think a big piece of the art, or which something I continue to learn, is to separate emotions, my feelings on the situation, from truth. So in those situations when I'm working with someone who's disappointed and frustrated with me, I have to separate how I'm feeling, because initially I think we all come up with how we're going to respond right away to that. Well, that's not true. You're not seeing this. My side.
Yeah.
And we have to pull back from that and say, okay, where is this person coming from? What do they see? I understand I have more information or my perspective, but let's separate what I'm feeling right now, and how are we going to move forward from here? That's easier said than done.
100%.
Very, very, very easier said than done. But that is part of the art and learning and growing as a leader, is how do we separate how I'm feeling about this, my frustrations, maybe even how I'm getting a little angry because of the way this person is responding. How do I separate that? And also know that this isn't always about me. Yes, as a leader, I can grow. Yes, as a leader, I probably could have done X, Y, and Z better, and I will do that next time. But a lot of this could be on this person. I can't own that person's feelings. I can't own the way that person is responding right now. I can only do the best that I know how to do in this situation, that art of helping someone, and then they have to own it. So I have to pull myself apart from that's on them and not on me.
Sherilyn, any final words or thoughts that we haven't said that you want to be able to share with our viewers and listeners before we conclude?
Yeah, I think we just have to keep offering ourselves kind of like that clay pot, available, teachable, moldable by the Lord, ready to be used for his service. And really the best place to have influence is right now, right in the very spot that God's placed you. You know, it's not like we have to strive, figure out where should I influence. Hey, there's people all around you in your family and your teams and, you know, your friend group, right where you are. That's the best place to influence, to walk in love and to be that leader to that group that, you know, will draw the best qualities out of them and help the group to function well.
Yeah. Man, I don't know about you, but that was a fire hose of phenomenal content from our stellar communicators and guests over the calendar year of 2021. Thank you so much for leaning in. Thank you so much for being challenged. And maybe one of these episodes, you got to go back and you got to listen to the whole thing because you missed it. Or maybe you got to go re-listen to it because you were like, man, like I really am curious on what they have to say about that topic further. And so would you be willing to go and do that? Would you be willing to share with someone who you think could really benefit from it? Would you be willing to hit that share button, that subscribe button, wherever you consume the content? As this concludes season 2, we are looking forward to anticipating all that God's going to keep on doing through the Influence Experiment in season 3 in 2022. So thank you so much. You are loved, you are valued, and we hope that you'll join us next time as we continue to explore the art and science of building influential capacity. Catch you next time.